Bună ziua, domnilor și domnilor. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. This is an important day. We're presenting the document that was launched a few weeks back that is a symbol of Romania's return to Africa. It's a strategy document, but it's more than that. So, because it's very difficult for a diplomat to put into words the significance of a return to, please bear with me and let me read a few lines from a poem by Léopold Senghor. Mes regrets, ce sont les toits qui saignent au Bordeaux, bercés par l'intimité des bosques. Au fond, du puits de ma mémoire, je touche ton visage, où je puisse l'eau qui rafraîchit mon long regret. No more regrets, though, because we did return to Africa, and that's for the past few weeks, ever since the Ministry of Foreign Affairs launched Romania's Africa strategy, we have heard numerous requests, questions about the substance and the ambition of this document. So we are now here and we're live on social media. This is why we do it in English and French, because we have a global public for this event, specifically in Africa. So with that, we are at the moment of unveiling the details of this, and following the speeches this afternoon, you will have the occasion for a brief Q&A session. So with that, it is really my pleasure to give the floor to Minister of Foreign Affairs of Romania, doamna Luminița Odobescu. Minister, the floor is yours.
Bună ziua, dragi invitați, dragi colegi, dați prieteni, mă bucur că sunteți așa de numeroși la acest important moment pentru Ministerul de Externe, la prezentarea strategiei României privind Africa. Your Excellencies, dear members of the diplomatic community in Bucharest, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Today's event represents the coronation of a long and much needed reflections on Africa. It has been a challenging, interesting and very rewarding journey. The links between Romania and Africa have strong roots spanning over decades, serve as a basis for our constructive engagement today. We rediscovered our vocation for grassroots and people-to-people connections and become more aware of Romania's privileged posture in relation to Africa. After mobilizing our diplomatic efforts in the last 2 decades towards becoming reliable and steadfast UN NATO member, we are now focused on reconnecting with partners and friends from our neighborhood and beyond. Moreover, there is a need to raise awareness among decision makers and societies in Africa regarding Romania's current status as a mature member of the EU and NATO and an active contributor to the development of this organization's policies towards the African continent. In this context, we have adopted recently and we are presented today a new Romanian strategy towards Africa, which is a governmental approach. Its title, Romania-Africa Partnership for the Future Through Peace, Development and Education, reflects in a nutshell our engagement to support Africa in a spirit of pragmatic, honest and balanced cooperation between equal partners. We want to make this a turning point in our political and strategic approach towards Africa. Our renewed engagement builds on a rich tradition of exchanges, but goes beyond and takes into account our new strategic and political posture. Romania has always felt close to African countries. Therefore, we are determined to reassure our African friends of our continuous commitment to, for becoming an even more reliable partner. This is a goal we try to live up to every day, with every actions that we take, with every project we implement, with every donation we make. Our aim is always keep true to our principles, fair, transparent, and people-to-people oriented. This way, very much the spirit that animated the recent official tour of our president to 4 countries in Africa, Kenya, Tanzania, Cabo Verde, and Senegal. And of course, we will publish the strategy immediately after our meeting. What was the purpose, the objective of our strategy? Well, with this new strategy, we intend to reconnect Romania and African countries in a spirit of shared interest based on our solid traditional relations that we established with most African countries immediately after their independence. The strategy also takes into account the geopolitical developments in Africa and, of course, in our direct neighborhood. It recognizes Africa's significant role in shaping our joint future, be it with regards to demography, climate change, security, economic integration, or promoting effective multilateralism. Another underlying statement is that Romania still enjoys a significant capital of sympathy in many African countries. And on the other hand, we are also aware that this capital risks vanishing due to inherent passing of time if you do not preserve it or build upon it. During every interaction we had with our African colleagues here in Bucharest, in Africa, or in New York or Brussels, we listened very carefully in order to better understand their needs and consequently fine-tune our offer of cooperation. The strategy benefited from contribution from the Romanian academic, business, and civil society circles. And we are very grateful for your contribution. Romania has a clearly positive profile in relation to Africa, including in the traditional areas of action: education, peace and security, and economic cooperation. In addition to an increased scholarship offer, we aim to facilitate the creation of a global alumni network in close cooperation with Alma Mater University, to cooperate more actively with the African study centers in Romanian universities, or to make better use of Erasmus+, Horizon 2020, or La Francophonie. For us, promoting peace and security, women peace and security as well in Africa, as in our immediate neighborhood, should be done through actively promoting the international rules-based order and respect for the UN Charter. We will continue our participation in UN peacekeeping missions and EU civilians and military missions in Africa. In October this year, Romania took over the command of the EUTM in the Central African Republic and provides 50% of the personnel of that mission. The Sahel will remain a priority area where our aim is to strengthen the capacity of African authorities and organizations to ensure their own security. In addition, this strategy gives a more proeminent role to the cooperation in the area of agriculture, in the area of digital. We aim to focus also on the transfer of expertise and lessons learned from Romania's own transition process. Specific fields of action could be the management of emergencies or adapting phytosanitary norms or regulation to ensure appropriate food safety. Africa will remain a priority region as well for our official development assistance for the period 2024-2027. Therefore, starting with this year, at least 17% of our ODA provided for the Romanian Foreign Ministry will be allocated to Africa. In order to implement this strategy, we plan to consolidate our diplomatic missions in Africa, equipping them with the necessary means to become regional hubs and enable them to work on more concrete projects and on boosting sectoral cooperation. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, dear friends, I'm proud and extremely motivated to be part of this project. But more than this, I'm eager to start turning into action the new strategy. Coming back to our President's recent tour in Africa, I would like to highlight that this represented the first such contact in 30 years and was designed to give a first political boost and visibility to our strategy. It shows us that most of the premises we built our strategy on are valid and extremely pertinent. Now, nothing would have been possible without the vision and the perseverance of my colleague in the Foreign Ministry. I know it was a rocky journey, but I think we all agree that it paid off. In addition, I extend my thanks to all Romanian institutions involved, and I want to commend our colleagues for their meaningful contributions. Now, the open door before us is an invitation and opportunity to strengthen the cooperation between Romania and African countries by focusing on tangible follow-up actions, particularly in the field of economic and sectoral cooperation. As we embark in this journey, let us prioritize concrete steps and initiatives that bridge the geographical gap and bring our nation closer together. Thank you. And again, many thanks for being with us today. I think this is a really important steps forward. And while presenting in details and answering your question about the strategy, our objective, as I said, as Foreign Ministry, is now on the next steps and on focus on the follow-up actions in different sectors, mainly in the economic sector, but not only in the economic sector, in different other sectors. We try to analyze and to propose lines of actions in our strategy. Again, many thanks for being with us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Minister. Indeed, as the Minister said, writing a strategy on anything is as complex as Africa is a daunting task. It took time, it took effort, it took a lot of dialogue, but it's there. That complexity that's reflected also in the languages, the creeds, and the cultures that are so diverse on the world's largest continent are the task of His Excellency, the Ambassador of Egypt, who will give the response to Madam Minister. So I invite Mr. Moyad Fatala Mohamed El Dali to take the floor. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Your Excellency, dear Excellencies, dear attendants, thank you very much and for giving me the floor. First of all, I would like to congratulate Your Excellency and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for this hard job. I know that it took a long time, and I really congratulate you for this strategy. And also, I would like to commend the choice of the three aspects of the strategy, which is peace, development, and education. These three aspects are very important for Africa, and really they touch on what's going on there. There are many conflicts in Africa. There are many difficulties for the development. And of course, the education is one of the most important aspects that all Africans are looking for. I would like to say that Romania have an old relations with all African countries. Unfortunately, maybe sometimes it was a little bit weakened, but here we are getting back to Africa, and this is what is important. For Egypt, I know that our relations are very deep. It's more than 100 years now, and through this development of the cooperation between our two countries, I am sure that also the relations between Romania and Africa will be the same, will be having a fast track for development. On behalf of all of my colleagues in the African ambassadors and consul generals, I would like to congratulate Your Excellency once again and hope that we're going to see fast-track developments. And of course, all our African countries are ready to cooperate and to benefit from this strategy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I know that Madam Minister has a very, very tight agenda today. So I thank you again for joining us for this important presentation of Romania's strategy for Africa. Secretary of State Traian Hristea will stay on for the Q&A. His mandate does cover geographically the continent as well as global affairs that, as the ambassador mentioned and as Minister Luminița Odobescu underlined, are the key 3 points of this strategy. So, Madam Minister, thank you so much. Et avec ça, on passe au français. Et c'est sur le même principe de diversité et inclusion de complexité des relations entre la Roumanie et des pays d'Afrique. On parle souvent du rôle du francophonie dans ce contexte. Et je suis contente de passer la parole à Madame Simona Corlan-Ioan, qui est la directrice du Centre des études africaines à l'Université de Bucarest. Madame la directrice, vous avez la parole.
Merci beaucoup. Bună ziua. Bonjour à tout le monde. Excellence, Monsieur le Secrétaire d'État, Excellence, Mesdames et Messieurs les ambassadeurs, chers collègues. C'est vraiment un très grand honneur pour moi de participer aujourd'hui à ce moment très particulier et très important pour la diplomatie roumaine. C'est un moment très particulier et très important et très émouvant en même temps pour moi-même parce que j'ai travaillé en Afrique, j'ai été l'ambassadeur de Roumanie en Afrique depuis 2006 jusqu'en 2016, donc pendant 10 ans. Et j'ai travaillé près de 30 ans sur l'Afrique, donc je menais des recherches sur l'Afrique. Donc je me suis investie presque toute ma carrière professionnelle pour promouvoir, pour comprendre, pour bien comprendre les cultures, les civilisations africaines, pour promouvoir l'Afrique en Europe, avec mes moyens bien limités de professeur universitaire et pendant les 10 ans de diplôme. Donc, c'est vraiment très, très important pour moi d'assister aujourd'hui au lancement de la stratégie pour l'Afrique, parce que, comme Madame la ministre vient de le dire, la Roumanie a eu des relations de longue date avec les pays africains et nous bénéficions encore d'un capital résiduel de mémoire en Afrique qui est absolument extraordinaire. Partout où j'ai été, pendant les 10 ans que j'ai passé en Afrique, j'ai trouvé des cadres qui ont été formés en Roumanie, des anciens étudiants en Roumanie qui parlent encore très bien notre langue, des professeurs et des cadres de haut niveau qui ont bénéficié de l'expertise des professeurs roumains. Pour la petite histoire, Monsieur le Premier ministre du Royaume de Maroc, quand j'ai été accréditée là-bas entre 2011 et 2016, Monsieur le ministre Benkiran, pour lui, j'ai incarné la Roumanie et j'ai représenté la Roumanie. Et ce n'est pas moi qui représentais la Roumanie en tant qu'ambassadeur, c'est son professeur de maths. Le professeur de mathématiques. Chaque fois, pendant les 5 ans que je l'ai passé en Afrique, au Maroc, Monsieur le Premier ministre, chaque fois, quand il me venait, il me disait « Oh là là, Madame l'ambassadeur, mon prof de maths ». Je n'ai pas osé de poser la question qu'est-ce que s'est passé entre Monsieur le Premier ministre et son prof de maths roumain, mais je sais que sur mon visage était vraiment imprégné son professeur de maths. Donc, c'est un moment très, très important parce que c'est un moment très, très important aussi pour les relations entre l'Union européenne et les pays de l'Afrique. C'est un moment très important parce qu'en même temps, c'est un moment très difficile. Et je ne voudrais pas insister sur cet aspect, mais ces dernières décennies, on voit qu'il y a un changement d'orientation parmi les pays africains. Et les relations entre les pays africains et l'Occident, les pays de l'Occident, les pays de l'Union européenne, se construisent et se déconstruisent en fonction de leur histoire et bien sûr des mémoires. Des mémoires de la période coloniale, des mémoires de l'avant la période coloniale, de la période de traite des esclaves. Donc c'est une relation qui est encore vraiment très sensible et très difficile à mener. Et ça se voit depuis quelques années que les pays africains, pas mal de pays africains, ils ont changé quand même leur orientation politique. Et un autre pôle d'intérêt pour le pays africain vient de se dessiner. Et je parle de l'Asie, bien sûr. Je parle de la Chine, je parle de l'Inde, je parle de la Turquie, je parle de pays arabes. Et ça se voit aussi dans des forums internationaux parce que pendant la crise de l'Ukraine, beaucoup de pays africains ils ont changé un peu de politique. Donc, dans cette situation qui est vraiment très compliquée pour les pays de l'Occident et pour les pays européens, la Roumanie a un atout absolument extraordinaire. La Roumanie n'a pas eu de colonies en Afrique, mais la Roumanie a eu des contacts avec les pays africains qui datent depuis longtemps. Donc je pense que la stratégie qui a été lancée aujourd'hui, c'est en même temps un retrouvaille. C'est un retrouvaille entre la Roumanie, qui a eu des contacts qui a eu des relations, de très bonnes relations pendant les années 60, 70, 80, même après la fin de la période communiste. Donc c'est un retrouvaille important avec des pays amis. Mais il faut jouer le rôle après le lancement de la stratégie. Et le rôle, après le lancement de la stratégie, ça revient, un rôle très important revient à ce moment à la société civile, aux hommes d'affaires, aux diplomates, aux universitaires, parce que c'est à nous tous de mettre en place cette stratégie. C'est à nous tous de revitaliser la mémoire des anciens étudiants qui ont été formés en Roumanie. C'est à nous d'utiliser le capital d'intérêt des étudiants qui sont maintenant en Roumanie. Parce que nous avons dans toutes les universités roumaines beaucoup d'étudiants qui viennent de l'Afrique. Donc des étudiants qui commencent à apprendre la langue roumaine, qui vont devenir des Roumains de cœur. Donc il faut les utiliser, travailler avec eux pour la mise en place de cette stratégie. En même temps, il ne faut pas oublier la formation de cadres à ce moment en Roumanie. C'est un paradoxe et je parlais tout le temps de ce paradoxe. La Roumanie a formé beaucoup de cadres africains, mais nous n'avons pas de spécialistes sur l'Afrique en Roumanie. Il y a des instituts de recherche, à ce moment, 3 instituts de recherche, à l'université de Bucarest, à l'université de Cluj et à l'université de Timișoara, qui s'occupent avec la formation des cadres, des spécialistes sur les pays africains. Donc, il faut investir en ce moment dans le cadre de cette stratégie, sur aussi la formation de cadres. Parce que si nous n'avons pas de spécialistes, si nous n'aurons pas de spécialistes, ça va être très, très difficile de mettre en place vraiment cette stratégie de coopération avec les pays africains. Je vais vous dire 2 mots sur notre institut qui fait partie, comme je viens de dire, de la grande famille des instituts de recherche sur l'Afrique et de la grande famille des instituts de recherche européens sur l'Afrique. Nous avons beaucoup de projets de coopération. L'Institut existe depuis 2017. Nous avons organisé plusieurs colloques, plusieurs tables rondes, plusieurs séminaires. Nous avons une collection qui s'appelle les livres de l'Institut et nous avons essayé de publier des livres des spécialistes sur l'Afrique, des livres sur l'histoire de l'Afrique, des thèses de doctorat. Donc, il y a pas mal d'intérêt. Nous sommes en train d'organiser maintenant un master sur les études africaines. Donc, nous avons besoin de votre coopération, de coopération des ambassades africaines qui se trouvent à Bucarest, de coopération du ministère des Affaires étrangères pour former vraiment des générations, des cadres qui vont travailler sur l'Afrique à l'avenir. Encore une fois, félicitations au ministère des Affaires étrangères, à toute l'équipe qui a travaillé pour la stratégie. Et donc, notre institut, les autres 2 instituts sont à votre disposition pour des coopérations, de futures coopérations. Merci encore une fois.
Merci, Madame la Directrice. I second that. The importance of expertise and having the right sort of experts in the Romanian community in charge with this strategy beyond the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is a critical element. My colleagues in our department, but across the departments in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, this year, when the first 2 editions of 2 training programs, one for communicators from Africa, another one for young diplomats, can testify, it wasn't easy to find experts as lecturers for these 2, and we're talking 2 relatively compact interventions. Not as much in public sector institutions like the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Ministry of Defense, etc., but in a private sector in the academia. So yes, a strategy is as important as the pillars that it stands on, not just the theoretical ones, but the practical ones. And this is why, for the next speaker, I'm glad that the Romanian Diplomatic Institute, which does serve also the purpose to to bring a new generation of expertise, both inside the government circle, but also outside the government circles, in the private sector, in academia, and civil society. It is my pleasure to give the floor to Mr. Mihai Sebe.
Thank you very much, Your Excellencies. At the European Institute of Romania, we've decided to explore once more last year how can we develop, from an academic point of view, the relationship between experts from Romania, experts from African states. And therefore, having in mind the fact that in the last 2 decades, the relationship between Africa and European states have been developed around 3 main pillars: development, aid and loans, trade and investment, and democracy, peace and security. And given the recent global challenges, such as post-pandemic recovery, climate change, and most recently, the Russian aggression against Ukraine, we have decided to create a collective report called African Perspectives on Consolidating the European Union-African Union Partnership. This initiative was designed from the beginning as an open platform for African experts to express their views and concerns regarding the potential held by our renewed partnership. And therefore, we have tried to bring into a Romanian audience, but also to an European one, the glimpses of how European Union is perceived by African experts. And therefore, in order to conduct this research, we have gathered an international team of experts from various African countries: Egypt, Ethiopia, Ghana, Kenya, Morocco, Nigeria, Rwanda, South Africa, and Uganda. And we have invited them to present their own views and perspectives based on their experiences in academia, think tanks, or public offices. And therefore, we invited the experts to think about the aspects that may impact the future of the EU-African Union partnership and the implementation of specific goals. And therefore, their ideas have been put up in a rather lengthy report, of which I'm going to present the main key elements. So, when we speak about EU-African Union relationship, we had several starting points. First of all, we need to have in mind that we have to deal with a very complex historical legacy, and we need to enhance mutual trust. Also, we need to build an equal partnership and ensuring local ownership of the priorities set. And from the key points expressed by our colleagues from the academia, several ideas came up on front. First of all, they underline the need to enhance multilateralism for peace and security. And for that, almost all our colleagues from the African academia spoke about the need to ensure African ownership for the solutions to ongoing crises and conflicts, and the need to support a better representation of African voices at the global level and in multilateral fora, and also how can we develop a more integrated and coherent EU approach to peace and security. Digital was also on our agenda, and managing the digital transition proved to be a rather complex issue. For that, he underlined the idea that we need to invest more in sustainable hard and soft infrastructure with the support of all stakeholders concerned. Also, we need to build upon the EU experience in regulating the digital space while taking into consideration the African realities, and also we underline the need to address the interconnections between the digital space and the economy and human rights situation. We cannot have a true digital transition without respecting the human rights. And finally, one key point that was also of interest to me in my academic capacity is the role of youth and education. We need to regain youth trust in governments and bring them on board as drivers of change and innovation. We cannot have a future if the young generation from Europe and Africa do not speak together and if they are not present in the public space. Also, the need to provide better learning opportunities in Africa, and that through the use of, for instance, of digital education system was underlined as a possible solution advanced by our colleagues in order, for instance, to prevent brain drain, and also, finally, the need to develop an overarching vision of people-to-people contacts through complementary types of diplomacy. That being said, we decided, given the interest of the report that was published last year in November, to organize in February a Chatham House debate with all our experts involved in this project to see how things happen in the following months. The main ideas that resulted from this academic debate was the fact that, first of all, we need to understand each other better. Africa needs to be correctly understood, as it is a continent with heterogeneous development and various cultural needs, and therefore addressing African inequalities require from all the stakeholders involved a long-term vision. Also, the main priorities should be global challenges such as climate change, green transition, or digital transition, and we need to consolidate the cooperation as a key to future relations. One central issue that appeared throughout the intervention of our colleagues was the fact that migration is a central issue for the partnership, and we need to address it in a manner that is equitable for all the parties involved. One good element regarding the Central and Eastern European countries is the fact that we lack previous past complex experiences with African countries made us to be well regarded by Africans, and Romania has a great potential to expand its cooperation with Africa, as we have a series of favorable factors that work for us, as a positive image, a good heritage, and extended diplomatic relations. At the same time, the fact that there are generations and generations of African students have studied in Romania may help build bridges instead of walls. And at the end, the idea was that academic cooperation should be the key if we want to advance in the future. But one strong element of the report was also the fact that we have brought in a series of experts from Romanian academia in order to see how Romania perceives Africa from economic point of view, cultural and educational, and they provided a much needed Eastern European perspective on the ongoing partnership, as the potential contribution of Romania and also other countries in the region tends to be sometimes neglected by policy analysts throughout the European Union and around. As for Romania's relationship with African state, the Romanian intervenients came up with a rather plastic image, that of a roller coaster. We had a steep climbing before 1999, then due to political reasons, we have a relative decline, and following the European integration, we had a rather predictable trajectory within the EU treaties and within the EU partnerships. What happens is that in the last year, the last month, we realized the fact that we need to once more to climb and step up the rhythm of relationship, and therefore we are witnessing a revitalization of the current relations, and the strategy that my colleagues work so hard is in a way a symbol of our renewed commitment. At the end of the day, considering the legacy of Romania's foreign policy in the region, as well its own experience within the European Union, the Africa chapter can be and is going to be a diplomatic success story waiting to be written by all the parties involved, as we have both the will and the capacity to restart and augment this friendship between our states. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sebe. I owe Mihai a correction because I know him for over 15 years, but not as long as I know Liliana Popescu, and I mixed the two institutions under the supervision of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Diplomatic Institute and the European Institute. But this is also a good opportunity for me to underline a very important point from what Mihai Sebe has just mentioned. Romania does return to Africa, but it does it as a member of the European Union. And that changes everything. Changes because Romania is a different country as part of the European Union, but also because its resources, its political will, its capacity of influencing policies amplify our national ambitions. So this is both a bilateral strategy from Romania to African nations, but also a very powerful European tool. With that, we conclude the formal, unless Secretary of State Traian Hristea wants to say something, and we open the floor to the audience, knowing that Mr. Traian Hristea, as Secretary of State responsible for Africa, had a hand in this document. So he's maybe the best positioned Romanian diplomat today to answer your questions. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Andrei. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's really a pleasure to see that, as Madam Minister put it, the rocky road of putting together the strategy, sometimes today, actually not today, when the National Security Supreme Council approved the strategy came to the fruition. And definitely it's a real pleasure and a satisfaction to have this meeting today so as to present to you the main aspects of this strategy. It's difficult to add too many words to what has been said already, but I would like to continue what His Excellency Egyptian Ambassador underlined, the main three pillars of the strategy. Maybe to add that somehow as a conclusion or as a, a continuation of what the other distinguished speakers said, it's actually the main objective of those three pillars, that this strategy is a strategy of partnership, a strategy of partnership with the countries from the African continent, the countries that were not unknown to us. On the contrary, a kind of a return to, I would say, a club we use to be very active members. And this being said, I would really like to underline that this came not in a vacuum. This came not only in a bilateral basis, as Andrei put it very well. It came in with additional atu or arguments of Romania being EU member states. And you will notice when you will read the strategy that one of the guiding lines that we put in the spirit of that specific partnership that is underlined in the very title of the strategy is actually a kind of a specific Romanian contribution to implement the partnership that was being established between the European Union and African Union, and to bring our own specific contribution to the implementation of the African Union's Agenda 2063, the Africa we want. So we would not want to dictate our models, we just want to come back and to bring our own experience, to share our lessons learned, and why not to share what we did wrongly and mistakenly in our transition process, so as to help the African countries to avoid those mistakes should they need it, should they consider it in a way as a valuable lessons for themselves. This being said, I will be ready to engage with you in the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, the floor is yours for reactions, comments, or questions to the panel. There's a roving mic, so don't hesitate. Just to open up, we do think of this document as a fundamental starting point. It is through dialogue, including with diplomatic communities in Europe and in Africa, that this will take actual shape.
Hello, and thank you for first of all, for publishing the strategy. It's a wonderful thing for us. I'm Dragoș Matescu from the Romanian Diplomatic Institute. I would ask Mr. Secretary of State Traian Cristea for more details about the relation between the presidential tour of Africa, very important in the entire context, and the strategy, just to elaborate on some details. Thank you.
Maybe some other connected to that questions, I could take them together. Okay. If there is not the case, allow me to develop a little bit here. As Madam Minister put it, the presidential tour in Africa that recently happened, it's actually the first political and diplomatic action of such a level in the last 30 years Romania has undertaken in the relations with the African country. And actually this was a kind of a signal, a very strong signal of Romanian political establishment and the society that was meant to redirect the attention on a way to re-engage with Africa. Of course, this tour came after the strategy was adopted in the National Security Council, with the endeavor to promote actually what are, the new coordinates and the new competitive advantages of Romania in re-engaging with the African countries in these new circumstances. What it was, I would say, the common ground of the countries that have been established for that tour actually were exactly the potential of re-engaging in concrete sectorial fields, building on what we had so far, also engaging in those sectoral fields that have a kind of a common denominator and a common potential to unfold a new approach towards the African countries. Some of them have been mentioned by Madam the Minister. It's education, it's agriculture, it's civil emergency, IT, cyber security, and information technologies. And of course, basically the partnership and the partnership among equal dialogue that elaborated and contributed to that area. So if you look to the agreements that have been signed during the presidential visit, you will see that they actually establish, or not establish, renew what we used to have with these African countries with a new platform, with a new basis that will contribute to the unfolding of other relations, those areas and those sectors being considered as multiplying factors for the engagement in other areas of cooperation, and the economic cooperation not being the last one. On the contrary, if you look to the dynamism of the African continent in terms of industries, agriculture, creative industries based on the digital and all the other novel areas, you would see that actually all those areas of cooperation that have been somehow enhanced by this visit actually represent the basis for giving room for other multiplying factors to play within it. The countries were not selected randomly. They were selected based on a quite substantiated analysis in the interinstitutional consultations in the preparation of the visit, so as to make sure that will present the most indicative, I would say, starting point in the approach of the implementation of the strategy as adopted by the National Security Council. That would be the first.
And other partner institutions in developing this important first step of our return to Africa. Oh, and by the way, the Secretary of State reminds me a very important element. You do have copies of it on your chairs, but the Romanian, English, and French versions of this are hopefully on the website as we speak. If not, today they will be online. So you're free to share them, comment them, and send us your feedback. As I said, it's a valuable instrument. Thank you all for being here.
And most probably, I should have mentioned that before. It's this strategy that we presented today, it's also an open invitation for bilateral cooperation in our future projects or your future projects as far as the African countries are concerned. Thank you.
Thank you so much and have a great evening. Thank you so much.